It's time for Mac Geek Gab, and listener Chris brings us our quick tip of the week with: in a darkened room, when I go to adjust screen brightness using the brightness keys, the default notches for brightness adjustment seem to be bigger notches than previous MacBooks I've owned. One press of the brightness up key is too bright for me, and one press of the brightness down key is too dim for me. This was always very frustrating until I remembered that there's a trick to use smaller adjustments. You do this by holding down the Shift and Option keys while pressing the brightness up or down keys. This also works for adjusting the sound volume in smaller increments. And I'll give you one bonus tip when you're doing the sound. If you use the Shift key, it will also silence the little sounds when you're tapping. More tips like this, plus your questions answered today on Mac Geek Gab 1073 for Monday, January 20th, 2025.
Greetings, folks, and welcome to Mac Geek Gab, the show where we take your quick tips and share them. We take your cool stuff found and share them. We take your questions and answer them. We take some of our own questions, quick tips, and cool stuff found and incorporate those in too, because the goal is for each and every one of us to learn at least 5 new things every single time we get together. Sponsors for this episode include Coda.io/MGG, which will bring all your text and tables together, and you can sign up for free there. BBEdit at barebones.com, of course, and Indochino at Indochino.com, and you can use code MGG to get 20% off any purchase of $499 or more. They've got some great suits and things there, so check that out. We'll talk more in depth about each of those in a little bit. For now, back here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here in South Dakota, I'm Adam Christensen.
And here also in frigid New Hampshire, it's Pilot Pete. Greetings, everybody. So show 1073, police code 1073 is either a report of smoke or in another jurisdiction, a mental person. So at the end of this show, you decide what you've got with this 1073. A quick note of personal privilege, if I may, Dave. I want to send a shout out to a listener, Nicole French. On my birthday, Debbie put something up on the Facebook about it being my birthday and me being a podcaster. And she like, that's Pilot Pete. I've listened for years. I didn't know that was him.
Too funny.
And here I are. Yeah. So, she's the sister of a friend of mine who's an American Airlines captain. So, Nicole, thanks for listening and thanks for recognizing me, I guess.
I guess.
Yeah.
She didn't say whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, but
she indeed did not. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I did want to share our monthly giveaway for this month is from us. If you go to macgeekgab.com/giveaway, you can enter to win a Mac Geek Gab hat, a dad hat or whatever it's. I don't know what the right term is. I think it's a dad hat now, but baseball hat kind of thing. So we moved our merch store around, and one of the most common requests from our old merch store was hats because the vendor that we were using previously did not have them. And so that has been fixed now. And if you enter between now and the end of the month, we are giving away, I believe, 5 of them. I think that's what Sadie decided. That's how much of our money Sadie decided to spend, which is amazing. So we're giving away 5 of those to you. But of course, you can go to the merch store and buy them. But enter first, and then on February 1st, find out if you won, and if not, then you can go get your own. So,
where is that merch store, Dave? Ask me for a friend.
Yeah, it is at macgeekgab.com/merch. As always, that's how you can get there. Thank you. Yeah.
Very
cool.
Here on this, can I just real quick? I want to clarify on that opening tip about the silencing the sound when you're adjusting the volume. That's where you hold just the Shift key. So Option Shift does the small increment adjustments. If you just hold the Shift key while doing the volume thing, if you have your volume setting set to, play the little tick sounds, that will silence those sounds. So, and then finally, if you just hold the Option key with that top row of like brightness or volume, when you tap the button, it will launch into that settings panel for that feature.
That's how I
Nice.
quickly get into my audio and video settings.
I got to remember that. That's a good, because it's not uncommon that I need to get into my audio settings. This
Right,
comes
yeah.
as no
Option
surprise to
volume
anyone
down,
listening.
boom,
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
So,
Huh. All right.
so
Yep.
should I take us to Tony?
Here on National Camcorder Day, why not?
Sure.
Why
Oh,
not?
that's right. We forgot to mention
Tony, I
that.
hope you have your camcorder going while you listen to your quick tip that you sent in. He writes in with this one. For the new year, I erased and reinstalled all of my devices. Crazy, I know, but everything backs up and resets. Pretty easy for me. One of the things that gave me some trouble is text replacements not syncing to my phone. On the Mac, you open the text replacement window, settings, keyboard, text replacements, and then you select one of them, and then do Command+A to get all of them. While highlighted, drag them to the desktop. And here's the part that blew my mind. What you drag to the desktop will change into a pList file. Then go back to the window, delete all of them, and see that sync over to all your other devices, meaning it deletes all of them on all the other devices. For him, it did a few, and some didn't sync, but Mock's next, because then you drag that pList file back into the empty text replacement window, and behold, now my devices have the same text replacements synced properly. Don't know if y'all give credit to forums. I found it on Mac Rumors. But if not, I just Googled and found that there's actually an Apple support page for this. Who knew, Tony? So
Google, apparently.
Yeah.
well, yeah, that not a rhetorical question, Tony. Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I've lost my place. Am I next too? Do I have another?
No,
I
it's
think,
me.
I think
Yeah, we're-
Adam's next with Alex. Yeah.
Alex has a tip for us with scanning text. He says, I was aware of scanning a document into Apple Notes in the form of a PDF attachment, but there is another option for plain text without images to get it directly without making the PDF. This is from, since iOS 15, we've had available in the notes the feature scan text into a note. To use it, you tap the attachment paperclip icon or the photo camera icon before iOS 18 and then hit scan text. Then you point your camera from an iPhone or iPad at the paper and the text with text and then tap the insert button. The text is scanned into a note. Handwritten sheets are supported as well. This is based on the live text feature of the camera, but is also seamlessly integrated into the Notes app. And it's available in most major languages except Hindi. And one other thing is it's not supported on the Mac with its continuity camera insert from iPhone feature. That will only do PDFs. So this is an iOS feature.
Yes, right. Yes, this is not a Mac thing. Yeah. I had no idea you could do that. That's amazing.
I just learned it at, where were we last week, Dave?
CES? Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually trying to get something in there, and someone standing at the booth goes, "Oh, here's how you quickly get that in there." And I'm like, "Oh, perfect."
Wow.
Thanks.
Huh.
I thought I was supposed to be the tech expert here. Never mind.
Yeah, who knew? Wow.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that you can go into the Photos app and like copy text and stuff from your photos too. It'll like find text in Photos and you can copy the text out.
Yes, and that would be the other way to do this, right? Would be to take a picture and then do that select thing in the middle of the photo. But
Yep. This is the one step.
This is way better. Yeah.
Yeah. Direct.
Exactly.
Avoiding multiple. Anytime you can avoid multiple steps or, compress your workfloes is a good thing.
Compressing your workflows. Get compressification of the workflow.
Yeah, there you go.
Exactly.
But in a kind of an impromptu quick tip on that is when you search for something in Photos, like for instance a city, if you put in the word Paris, if there's a photo with a sign that has the word Paris in it, even if it was taken in Temecula, guess what? It's coming up in that search. It's amazing what it knows about your photos that you don't.
It's true. Yeah, for sure. While we were at CES last week, and while we were on the plane, I think it was the plane home where I finally realized this, because we flew JetBlue, and JetBlue has adopted lots of Apple's APIs and user interface enhancements, I'll call them, into their app. And when you're at the airport, now you get a lock screen, persistent, whatever that is, the live notifications, live tracking,
Live update thing, yeah.
Live updates, that's the one. And you get one of those, and it tells you what gate you're at, what time your plane is boarding. Once it starts boarding, as long as the gate agents are putting things into the system right, you get like, all right, we're boarding group A, we're boarding group B, etc. It's good, it's great. But during the flight, you also get these things. And when you're not on your lock screen, if you're on your phone, instead of seeing your full menu bar at the top, or whatever you want to call it, the bar at the top of the screen that shows your, say, Wi-Fi signal strength and the time and other things you might want, you get a bar that's super wide telling you that you are flying from Las Vegas to Boston on JetBlue 178. And it's like, yep, I'm pretty aware of what's going on in my life around me here. And I knew I was on a plane. I was pretty sure I was headed to Boston. So thanks for that. But what if you want to see what would normally have been in your menu bar? And that is the quick tip. What we learned was, what I did was I grabbed that top thing in the menu bar and I just squeezed. I pinched it closer to the center to squeeze it down. And as I did that, it got smaller. And then I pinched it out and it got wider again. But what I noticed is you don't have to do the pinch or unpinch motion. You can just slide one finger from the outside of one edge towards the middle, and that will do it. And you can slide from the middle out to do the opposite. So the pinching thing certainly is the kind of intuitive, natural thing, but you don't have to use two fingers. You can use one and just swipe to or from the middle of that little bubble in the notch zone up there.
Yeah.
And and it works great.
Yeah, that's the dynamic island, right?
The dynamic island, correct.
That
yes.
expands open with the live updates, I think.
Or
I didn't know you
often.
could. Yeah, I didn't. That's brand new to me. I didn't know you could adjust that, and that's always been annoying.
Yeah, we just
I have
found
ones that come up
I wonder
for
if that's
sports.
new in 18.
Hang on. Wait, Pete. Let Adam finish here. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying I have one that comes up often for sports, and I always wondered how I got rid of that thing.
Yeah,
like sports
and
scores.
it was frustration on the plane that was like, there's got to be some way to get. Oh, look at that! Oh, it goes away. Sorry,
There
Pete.
is
Go ahead.
some way. No, I was just saying, or as Dave often calls it, the bitter pill.
It is the bitter pill. That's true. Yeah, at bitterpillband.com. That's right. Sorry. A little bit of self-promotion goes a long way. Yep. All right. You got the next one, Pete?
Yeah, so being, I don't know, less than articulate at some point, I mentioned something that I managed to confuse one of our listeners, John. He wrote in asking about the
silence unknown callers.
Something I said, which was silence unknown callers.
Yep.
I mentioned it apparently as a shortcut, and can you list the shortcut steps or link to that shortcut because we didn't put it in the show notes. Thanks, and I love the program. Thank you, John. So if I said shortcuts, I apologize. It's in settings. You go to settings, apps, phone, silence unknown callers, and that's 6 from the bottom in that setting. So it's you don't need a shortcut, John. Fortunately, it's already there from Apple, all done for you. So,
It's true. It's true. Cool.
So and then
Yeah.
something else on that, or should I move on to Gary?
No. Yep. Thank you. Keep going.
Yeah. Okay. So Gary wrote in with this one at a class, at the local Apple store. I was doing an iPad class, and our teacher Jason showed us this invaluable feature in settings. Seek multitasking and gestures. Scroll down to swipe up from the corner. This now gets me a screenshot instead of the awkward attempt at getting two buttons simultaneously. The entire class gave Jason a round of applause. Gary, well, here's how to make that happen, because I tried and tried and tried. I couldn't make it happen, and I even upgraded from iPad 17 to 18. But here's how you do it. You go into Settings, Multitasking and Gestures, swipe finger from a corner, and you got to switch that on, and you'll see the bottom right one is set to defaults to screenshot. So once you hit screenshot, then back out of there, and when you swipe up from the bottom right corner in your iPad, you get a framed screenshot, and you can manipulate it, save it, send it, forward it, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool. Just swipe up from the bottom corner, and whenever it grabs your whole screen and puts it in a frame, and then you can use it as a screenshot any way, shape, or form you like.
Now I want to grab my iPad.
Yeah, not to throw you off. I might want you to do that, Dave, because Pete, do you happen to remember, is that the feature that the default is like the quick note or whatever?
Well, that's on the Mac, but this is for the iPad.
Okay, I thought the iPad had the quick note thing, but maybe that's only with the Apple.
Because look, there's
maybe only
in
with the
notes.
Apple Pencil.
If you go into Settings, Notes, and then change it, there's one there too. And I tried that, and I could not get it to work, and that's why I was confused. And right before the show, I was about to say we can't do this because it doesn't work. And I looked again and found it in Settings, Multitasking and Gestures, and I went, "Oh, there it is."
So I did grab my iPad, Adam.
Hello?
And it's running iOS 17. I haven't upgraded this. This is one of my gigging iPads, which is why it's within arm's reach here in the studio. Mm-hmm. I went into Settings, Multitasking, and Gestures at the very bottom, and this is 17, so it might be in a different spot in 18. At the very bottom, as Pete said, there is an option that is off by default, swipe finger from corner. Turning that on, then I get to choose what happens when I swipe my finger from both the bottom left and bottom right corners. And screenshot is bottom left and quick note is bottom right.
Okay, so quick note is normally bottom right.
That's right.
That's what I was
That's
asking.
what it was. Yep. Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
And I don't remember with the quick note feature if you're using an Apple Pencil, I don't know if that has to be enabled or not. I think with the Apple Pencil, that's like a default.
It's like an automatic,
no matter what, because it detects the pencil and it's like, oh, you want a quick note. I think if you change the setting, I think it will change it. But from what I remember, but anyway, that's cool. I didn't know. I didn't know you could do both corners, and two, I didn't know it was an option for like finger gestures. Which is cool.
And it is. You can do both corners. Those, at least in iOS. At least in iOS 17, those are the only two options. Well, other than off. So.
Yeah, and I can confirm that's the same in 18. Those were the only two options available.
Great, cool. Yeah, that's very I had no idea. I don't know if I want to turn that on my default iPad or not. I do agree with Gary's frustration, and clearly the frustration of most of the other people in the room with him at the time, that trying to do the two-finger thing on an iPad often, results in contorting oneself in an uncomfortable way to get that to happen, especially if there's a case on the iPad. Like, really, there's no way to get leverage, and so it's weird. So when I want to take an iPad screenshot, that would be the way, but I'm concerned that I might wind up taking iPad screenshots unintentionally with this swipe-up method. So maybe I turn it on and see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe so, maybe not.
Yeah. Well, I've never had any problem doing it with the buttons, but I can see where that's an accessibility issue for some people.
I have an iPad mini, and so the buttons are all on the same edge. So hitting both and like getting my fingers in the case and applying some leverage to the other side, it's an abnormal motion thing to do. It's not like the iPad or the iPhone where you use one hand and you can just do it because you're squeezing from one side to the other and it's just sort of natural. It's kind of like doing it on the watch, where at least on my Apple Watch Ultra, I wind up hitting the action button more often than not.
I can't tell you how many times I go into photos and find watch screenshots. Where'd that come from? At least I know what time it happened. It's right there.
Speaking of not getting caught, Harvey has a submission for our Don't Get Caught segment here. He says, I was in my car recently and asked Siri to send a message. I was using CarPlay and the swirling Siri indicator appeared on my infotainment screen. Good. But Siri responded, there is no app for that. What? I often send messages using CarPlay and have never had a problem. Why couldn't Siri find the CarPlay Messages app? But here's the thing. I couldn't find the Messages app on the infotainment screen either. Figuring the app must have gotten deselected on the iPhone, I checked Settings, General, CarPlay, My Car, Customize. No Messages app. It wasn't listed, nor was it included under More Apps. What was going on? Harvey continued. You all recently discussed the new iOS feature for requiring Face ID that appears when long pressing on an app. Then you can set an app to require Face ID when you open it. Well, this requires Face ID authentication to open the selected app. And CarPlay doesn't have Face ID, it turns out, or any other method of authentication. So if you require Face ID or Touch ID for an app that you use with CarPlay, such as Messages, but also the phone app, you will get caught not being able to use that app with CarPlay. That's really, what a good find, Harvey. It makes perfect sense when articulated, but I would never have expected that to remove an app from CarPlay, especially an app like Messages, because it's like, dude, I told you to use Messages. It's my voice. I've unlocked the phone. So.
Right. And something you just said there, Dave, I wonder why Apple's never done this, but a very secure method of authentication is voice. Voice prints are very individual.
Well, you say that.
I get there's impressionists and all that, but
no, voice prints can be individual if used properly, but my son and I routinely trigger the S-Lady on each other's iPhones. I think I triggered the S-Lady on your iPhone or yours on mine, Pete. I can't remember when we were in a hotel room in Vegas. So Apple's threshold for this is not at a point where I would trust it for security.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think they have I guess what I'm saying is I think they have the technology to use voice authentication if they so chose. They have not thusly far.
That's fair. Yeah, right. They're certainly not using it. They're using it as a convenience feature for voice commands,
feature.
Not a security feature.
S-Lady,
Yeah. I think that's the right way to say it. Yeah, but you're right. They could.
It would be a way to do it with CarPlay, but
the other way to do it
dashboard.
Well, but CarPlay 2, remember, integrates more deeply. Right, CarPlay 1 or CarPlay as we know it. Really, all that is using your car's screen as an external monitor for your iPhone, an external touchscreen display for your iPhone. That's it, right? Basically. Yep. Whereas CarPlay 2 integrates with the dashboard more deeply, and I certainly don't know the extent to which it can go. However, there are lots of cars now that have a camera aimed at the driver's face.
That's right.
For at least for the car's system, to alert you to when you are not focused on the driving part of the driving, and if you're falling asleep or distracted in some other way, it gives you a little, I don't know, electric shock or something through the steering wheel. I don't know what it does, but I don't have one of those cars yet.
Straight and narrow.
Yeah,
I'm guessing it's an audible warning, probably.
Yeah. They don't make you hook up any leads to bare skin or anything. Although that doesn't sound like a terrible idea. On the way home from gigs, sometimes I would love to have something to keep me awake. Really, I just want a car that drives itself, but that's a whole other discussion. So, there's a world where but that's just a regular camera, not the Face ID 3D like LiDAR or whatever it's using I forget what it's using. I was at CES last week. It was a long time ago. I can't remember. Yeah. All right, folks, look, you know how juggling all your work projects can feel like trying to herd cats with laser pointers? Well, our sponsor Coda takes all that chaos and organizes it into one neat, magical tab. It's not just docs and spreadsheets. It's an all-in-one workspace that connects your tools, your teams, and even your AI-powered ideas. I've used Coda with one of my other businesses, and let me tell you, it's like giving your team superpowers. Everything from project trackers to OKRs, all living in harmony. And here's the kicker. It's so streamlined, it's almost like Coda has its own version of the Force. So don't get caught with your tasks scattered across 37 tabs, never knowing where you're going to be. More than 50,000 teams trust Coda to keep them more aligned and focused. To try it for yourself, go to coda.io/MGG today and get started for free. I know. That's coda.io/MGG to get started for free. Coda.io/MGG. And our thanks to Coda for doing what they do and for sponsoring this episode. All right, look, it's time to step up your style game because this year, it's not just about upgrading your tech, it's about upgrading you. And thanks to our sponsor, Indochino, you can look as sharp as that Thunderbolt 5 hub I talked about last week. Indochino lets you create a fully customized suit that's tailored just for you. I'm talking about picking the lining, lapel shape, buttons. Heck, you can even add a monogram so your jacket is as unique as your macOS dock layout. And the fabrics? They're sourced from some of the best mills in the world at a fraction of the cost you'd expect. So whether you're tying the knot, giving a keynote, or just heading into the office looking like you own the place, Indochino has got you covered. Plus, you can design and order it all online or visit a showroom for that premium hands-on experience. And here's the deal. For all your 2025 plans, look your best with Indochino. Visit Indochino.com and use promo code MGG to get 20% off any purchase of $499 or more. That's Indochino.com, promo code MGG. Don't get caught looking like last year's tech. Dress like the future with Indochino. And our thanks to Indochino for sponsoring this episode. Now, let's talk about text editing perfection. BBEdit, our sponsor. You know it, you love it, and if you don't yet, well, get ready to have your mind blown. BBEdit is the ultimate tool for anyone who works with text, whether you're coding, creating show notes, like me, or just trying to find and replace all those embarrassing typos in your brilliant manifesto. With BBEdit's projects feature, you can organize your files like a pro. Gone are the days of fumbling through a million tabs like you're auditioning for a role in Messiest Desk Survivor. Need to interact with ChatGPT right inside your text editor? BBEdit's ChatGPT worksheets have got your back. It's like summoning a wise text wizard to your desktop, minus, the beard and the pointy hat. You could have those if you want. And don't get caught staring at an empty screen wondering what to do next. BBEdit even has cheat sheets for markdown and clippings. They're like having a cheat code for productivity, only this one doesn't break the game, it levels it up. So visit barebones.com/store to learn more and try BBEdit free for 30 days. Who knows? Maybe it'll even inspire you to write that novel you've been dreaming of, or at least a killer email. BBEdit, it doesn't suck. And remember, folks, don't get caught without it. And our thanks to Barebones and BBEdit for sponsoring this episode. All right. While we're thanking people, I want to take a minute and thank all of our premium contributors who have contributed in the last couple of weeks while we've been traveling and all the stuff. As I always say, these are optional, not mandatory, and very much appreciated and very much a part of what it takes to make it possible for us to do the show. So thank you. All the things all of each and every one of you do is fantastic. Listening, sending in your questions. And yes, those of you who can and are interested in being part of the premium program are a huge part of that as well. So thanking John in Vevey for a $60 contribution. Thank you. David in Lenexa for a $40 contribution. Richard in Pontrug and Dennis in Chapel Hill for $30 contributions. Barry in Delray Beach. Michael in Naperville. Jason in St. Louis. Michael in Troy. Dan from somewhere. Richard in Quakertown, Bruce in Alpharetta, Warren in Fairview, Terrence in Avon Lake, Jeff in Del Mar, Corey in Kenmore, Karen in Chagrin Falls, Paul in Tunbridge Wells, Graham in Yelverton, Deb in San Clemente, and Walter in Long Island City. Thank you all for your $25 contributions. You also rock, as you know. Thanks to Bob and Lepesh for a $15 contribution. And $10 contributions thanks to Stephen in Costa Mesa, James in Melbourne, Robert in Columbiana, Jason in Charlestown, Mark in Vero Beach, Jeremiah in Edgewater, Cal in Russellville, Donald in Furlong, Nick in Marquette, Wagner in Allen, James in San Antonio, Phil in Summers, Scott in Bourbonnais, Abel in Santa Rosa, Neil in West Hartford, Mark in Coopersburg, Peter in Auburn, Timothy in West Windsor, Chris in Chorleywood, Ken in North Las Vegas, Brian in Southbury, and Santiago in Palm City. Thanks to all of you. You rock. Truly. If you want to learn about the premium program, of course, go to macgeekgab.com/premium, and there are details there about what you get, including that warm, fuzzy feeling that only happens when supporting your 3 favorite geeks. So, thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks.
Yes.
New listener Allison has a tech question, believe it or not.
Really? Wouldn't have ever guessed.
She says, in Apple Mail on my iPhone, if I swipe from right to left, I usually get a red trash button, but only on some messages. Instead of delete, it says archive. Any idea why that is, and if there is a way to make it always a delete?
Yes. The confusing part about this is that it is set per account. So different accounts can have different default behaviors. And where you go to set this is in settings. I'm walking through it here just to make sure I get this right. It's going to be settings, apps, mail, and accounts, of course, because you need to get into an account. So you choose mail accounts, pick an account, and then in that account, go to account settings, advanced. I know we're like 18 levels deep here. And that's where you will see 2 different things. Number 1, at the top is mailbox behaviors, where you get to set which mailbox is treated as the default for this account. Again, the default drafts and then sent and deleted and archive. And then the second part of this, right, the second section down says move discarded messages into the deleted mailbox or the archive mailbox. And it's that setting that changes whether that swipe going right to left says trash or archive. So that's where that is. And you got to go. My advice is to set it consistently for every account so that as your fingers learn that muscle memory, you're doing the same action, whatever it is, whatever works for your workflow. That's what you want to do. So hopefully that helps.
Yep. I would be with you on that, setting it, except I do have some accounts that I have exceptions with. Like I have like junk email accounts that I just use for like being the place that I register things and stuff like that. So on that, I prefer, most of the time I prefer the archive versus the delete. Allison, it sounds like, prefers the delete, but on those I just do delete because I just want to be like, let's dump them, or even more so I do the delete all thing. But point is, there is some instances I think when it makes sense to have it different.
I love that, because in either case, your muscle memory in your fingers is doing what you want it to do.
Correct. With
the message by default. In your accounts you care about, by default, you want to archive. In the accounts you don't care about, by default, you want it to track. Okay. This makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that answers my question, because I was like, why wouldn't you want to just delete it? Get rid of it.
I have mine. Yeah, I have mine set to archive. I certainly delete emails. There was a period of time where I didn't have to, but that was a long time ago. But I archive most things, and that has paid off in a variety of ways. I mean, like having an archive of email that goes all the way back to the very first email I sent and received, which was with John F. Braun. That's not entirely true. The very first email I sent and received with an email client on my Mac. I was doing lots of it via like Pine from a text window on a Unix machine before this. I don't have those. But the one that I used Eudora to send, that I have. That was back and forth to John F. Braun in whatever year, 1990 something,
Wow.
I think. Yeah. But I do. I have an email archive that goes all the way back to that. And it has paid off at times for a variety of reasons, including once during a legal proceeding when it was like, wait, I can show this whole trail. I have it going back years and years. And it was like, oh, my attorney was like, that's great. I'm like, yeah, man, why not? Don't you save your stuff? He says, yeah, but you're not a lawyer. I'm like, well, pretty good hack lawyer, I guess.
Fair enough. So that brings up a question I have, Dave, which may be appropriate for another show if it takes too long. But it's that time of year to archive all of last year's mail, right? So
Yep.
Is that a fairly simple process? How hard? I know you've talked about it before, I know. But a quick review, or maybe next week address.
No, we're here.
Okay. All right.
No, it's a great question. So my guess is we're all going to have different ways of doing this. I have my primary IMAP account into which pretty much everything comes. Let's just treat it that way. And that's my Fastmail account. And I think I have 30 gigs of storage with Fastmail by default. And that's plenty for me for several years of email. And so each year I create an archive mailbox on Fastmail for that year. So I'm archiving 2025 stuff into 2025. And I do this because it makes the next part of my workflow simpler. And that is, at this point this year, not right this point because I'm about to go off to NAMM and then to vacation. And so probably February-ish, I will take things from, I can't remember if it's 2022 or 2023, and move those from my IMAP account at Fastmail, where I have limited storage and I want to clear that out. I move them to I'll call it my local storage. Now, my local storage, as astute listeners might remember, has evolved and is now also an IMAP server that I run on my Synology. And that way I can access my archives no matter where I am and what computer I'm on, which is awesome. But it is storage that I own, right? So it can grow and it can have those emails back to 1990 something or whatever. So once a year, I archive everything to one archive mailbox. That's false, and I should share that. The one thing that I don't archive into my primary archive mailbox is press releases. I get a metric boatload of press releases, and I put those into a press release archive, organized the same way by year. And that I do the same thing with. I move it just instead of to my archive to my press release archive. So that's how I deal with two different types of archives. The other one, and those are fairly easy to manage for me, and that kind of workflow is fairly easy to remember because it's really straightforward. The one thing that is not included in what I just talked about, but is, in my opinion, equally as important, is my sent mail. And I archive my sent mail by year as well. I don't use a separate sent mailbox for each year. For that, I go into my sent mailbox and I'll, like, if it's 2022 that I'm archiving off now, or 2023, I can't remember, I will go and just select all the messages in my sent mailbox from 2022 and then move those to whatever I'm using for my local archive. And in this case, it's just another mailbox at a 2022 sent mailbox. Do not commingle your received archive in the same mailbox as your sent archive, because the messages are different. And the way mail clients treat them, if the only thing in there is messages you've sent, when you go to look at them, it'll all look right. But if you commingle things, it gets really weird because the from address is not you and things start looking weird. I will also say this, Apple Mail, I use both Apple Mail and Thunderbird. Thunderbird sort of being my primary, although I kind of keep bouncing around because I like some of the things Apple Mail does. on the Mac, Apple Mail is way more efficient than Thunderbird at moving, tens of thousands of messages or thousands of messages from one mailbox to the other. Thunderbird, for whatever reason, is piggishly slow. And I used to think Apple Mail was slow, by the way. And it is. However, it at least gets the job done. You've got to leave it open. Don't let your computer sleep. For me, it's, like I said, thousands. Maybe it's somewhere, north of 10,000 messages a year that I'm archiving off. Sometimes I will do them in like quarterly chunks so that if the process gets foobarred, I'm not screwed up.
Sure.
But that's how I do that.
Well, it occurs to me that people that are listening could give you 10,001 messages to archive by sending something to feedback@macgeekgab.com.
What was that? Feedback@macgeekgab.com, Pete?
That was it.
I think he said feedback@macgeekgab.com. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you archive your email, Adam? Or do you,
I don't.
There's a premise there that you do, right? Yeah, exactly.
I absolutely I don't. I mean, I think I've mentioned it in the. Yeah, I think I mentioned it in the past that I used to use Mail Steward.
Yeah.
For that sort of thing. I don't know why I stopped. I guess I don't worry about email a whole lot. It's one of the few areas. It's funny because I'm fanatic about archiving and backing up, as a lot of people know, a lot of things.
Yeah.
Mail's never been a thing that I've worried about for any particular reason. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have any email I think that's valuable enough. And this is probably wrong thinking on my part because I'm sure I do, but I just
that's
in my
the
head
thing.
go,
yeah.
If my email was all gone, fine, my email's all gone. Like, it's just one of those things I don't worry about. But I may regret saying that statement now that I've said it. I do want to bring us back to Allison's tip a little bit, because there's one thing I think I've mentioned that I use Spark Mail on my iOS devices. I used to use it on my Mac. I don't like what they've done with the Mac app, so I've stopped using it there. I've gone back to Apple Mail. So one feature that I wish Apple would steal, borrow, whatever you want to call it, Sherlock from the Spark people is, they have, when you swipe left or right, they allow you to have 2 stages of it. So you go part way and it's one option like delete, and then you would go further and then it can be archive, and you can do it either way. And they allow you to do that both directions. So you can have up to 4 swipe operations per message, which I love. Yeah. So like on mine, I have it set up so if I pull a little ways, it's delete. If I go all the way over, it'll archive the message. And then the opposite direction is, for me, move, because I move messages between mailbox. So when I go part way, it says move. And if I go all the way, it marks that message as unread. So, which is nice.
Mail on the iPhone has both directions, certainly, right? You can go one direction for trash. And then if you don't go all the way, you have other button like the delay or remind button. And then the other way you can do the unread or archive. But you don't get to just, it's a 2-step process to get one of those alternative options.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, you have to, yeah, you're right. That's right. I think you can do that. But yeah, this is just like part way, or, and so I usually have the default gesture I want is usually all the way, because then I can just, swipe, and not even think about it. But, if I want to be more deliberate, part way, and then I can override my default, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. How about you, Pete? How do you archive your email?
I let it sit there year after year after year. So it's all there. I can go back 15, 20 years, but I'm getting to the point where I probably need to do it, which is part of the reason I asked the question.
How much do you just keep paying for more email storage when you hit that wall? Is that, and that's like, that's not a bad plan. I'm probably at about 10 gigs, so I haven't hit the wall yet. Got it.
I need to know. Now, that being said, I also do delete a lot of emails. If I'm having a thread conversation with somebody that I know I might want to refer back to at some point in time, or if it's a letter to or from an attorney or a financial institution, I save that, but a lot of the rest goes away. So
yeah, I think we all make that decision on the fly. Like, is this something I want to save, and is this something, or is this not important? Because I started with email clients at a time that, at least for me, but I think probably for most people, email volume was so low. I got into a habit of just archive almost everything, right?
Sure.
And that's the reason I have that habit. Now, as I mentioned, over the years, that habit has served me well. So now I have actual reasons to do it. But at the time, it was just, well, I get 3 emails a week. Of course, I'm going to save them all. These are precious. What a cool use of technology, So
I guess that's the other thing I should point out about my strategy. I am ruthless about deleting email for the same reason. Like, I don't consider email like something very important. So the stuff that I do archive or save or, move off to another folder in all of my email accounts is very deliberate. Like, it's very, and there's, I would say 70% of the stuff I just trash anyway. So
got it. Yeah. I'm probably more like 85% keep. So my email, I have to rely on search for email, and I like Mail's search better than Thunderbird's search for sure.
Yeah. I'll add real quickly, my workflow for archive and delete is I will highlight a message in the top. I'll hover my mouse over the archive box and my other hand over the delete button, and I just go down and click on one or the other as I go down through.
I should share a quick tip. I feel compelled because when I'm doing email, I use my keyboard. And years ago, using different software, but now just Keyboard Maestro, I have keyboard shortcuts for archive mail, archive press release, and then obviously there's the built-in keyboard shortcut for delete, which is the delete key. But I have Keyboard Maestro scripts so that if I'm in Mail, if I'm in Thunderbird, the keystrokes for me are the same. Correct. They just work. Correct. And I have a couple other things too, but it's great. My fingers know what to do. They've known what to do for 10 years. And by golly, just because Mail took away extensions doesn't mean I'm going to accept that. So that's when I wrote the Keyboard Maestro scripts. And what's cool about Keyboard Maestro for that kind of automation is you can set groups groups of macros in Keyboard Maestro. You can set each group to only be active in a certain app. So I have my set that's active when Mail is foremost. And, I don't know why, but Control-T is my normal archive thing. I do know why. It doesn't matter. But Control-T does a certain menu item in Mail and a very different menu item in Thunderbird, of course. But it doesn't matter because I've got Keyboard Maestro set to make the magic happen there. So
sure.
Yeah. And Paul Conaway in the chat says he uses a Stream Deck button to archive or delete mail. I could see that too. Why not? Yeah.
That's a good way to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. I only have a Stream Deck here in the studio. I don't have one on my laptop. And I wind up doing a lot of email triaging from my laptop. So I think my current workflow works better for me, but I like this. I'm always thinking about,
At the risk of taking this too long, one other thing I'll mention that I do, because I mentioned I'm pretty ruthless about deleting email. So because I also have for years used Mail Steward, which is like that you can set SaneBox is what I wanted to say. I use SaneBox for my email accounts. And what's great about SaneBox is it lets you set up special folders. It uses technology to like pre-filter. So like newsletters that I subscribe to all go to a newsletters folder automatically. And junk, possible junk mail goes to a possible junk. They have a bunch of things that you can set up, and you can set up all kinds of rules. I think we've talked about it in the past. But because I use that, another handy feature for me that is part of Spark Mail is when you're in an inbox. So we talked about the swipe gestures. You can go obviously on individual emails. With Spark, if you're in an inbox and you have a giant list, so I do this on my newsletters one all the time, I know I want to delete all of them. If you go down to the very bottom, at the very bottom, there's a little handle, and you can pull that handle and it will apply that swipe gesture to the entire box. So like I do that a lot for like newsletters. It's just like I've got, 150 newsletters. It's just like delete all of them. It's one swipe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I like that. Yeah, SaneBox. I'm at a loss for words. If SaneBox were to stop doing what it does or offering their service or go out of business, heaven forbid, or any of those things, it would be my first priority to create a replacement for SaneBox. Yeah.
Super helpful.
Super helpful. Yes. Yeah. It is the one thing, the one third-party thing that I let have access to my IMAP logins so that it can do what it does. And I even as I say it, I know that that's petrifying, even to me. But the trade-off is 100% worth it. I know the people that run the company. I've chosen to put my faith and trust into them, and because otherwise I don't know what I would do. Yeah.
Same, but
Yeah.
to each your own.
To each your own. Yeah, of course. Yeah. All right.
Climb us out of that rabbit hole, Dave.
Yes, I'm going to climb us out of that rabbit hole. Jedd asks, he says, hey, geeks, I have an issue with my wife for a few years now. That's not a setup for a joke or a therapy session. He says, the issue is when I share a note with her, half the time it works. The other half, she gets a message that says, can't open note. Sorry, this note can't be opened right now. Please try again later. My notes are in iCloud, and when I share with my kids, they seem to have no problem. I also used to have issues with sharing reminders with my wife, but over time that seems to have resolved itself. Obviously, it's an issue on her devices alone, but what is a good way to help her troubleshoot with as few headaches as possible?
So, Jedd apparently forgot to whom he was writing, because I said, look, Jedd, we've all been there. Well, with our own wives anyway, not with yours. I've never had any issues with your wife. And he wrote back and said, well, you've never had any issues with my wife because you haven't met her. So,
Yep.
all right, had to do it. Sorry. Look, so I wrote him back and I said, I think there's going to be more input here from Adam and Dave, because I don't think we got the answer based on his other reply. But I said it can take some time for notes to sync up and make sure that the Notes app stays open on her device for a few minutes. The last week when Dave and I were at CES, I wasn't getting notes from my iPhone or from my Mac to my iPhone. And he said, yeah, you got to leave notes open on your phone. And so I did. And while we walked over to the event, by the time we got there, boom, it was there. So I said, but failing that, the first thing I would try is have her sign out of her iCloud account and back in. And for any specific notes she's having trouble accessing, remove her from that shared note and re-add her. And I said, if none of that works, let us know. It could be any number of things from full storage or permissions or anything along those lines. He says, I've tried all. He wrote back again, said, I've tried all of that. Computers making things easier are actually making things harder. So those were my two suggestions. What else, Dave, Adam? Come on. The notes is great when it works. And sometimes it don't work.
I have certainly seen the things that you said, especially that notes, unlike some things like photos, for example, notes on your Mac and your iPhone only syncs when the app is open. And it will shut down in the background on your iPhone often because, the iPhone is managing memory usage and CPU usage and all those things. So, yeah.
Low power mode even.
Low power mode. Well, low power mode would just exacerbate that. But it really isn't all that different because if the Notes app isn't in the front, it's not going to work. It's kind of like it's in low power mode all the time for Notes.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of times when I have syncing issues, and they appear to be one-way syncing issues, one of my first steps to rectify it is to go the other direction. Have her create a note in the shared folder that you have or whatever, or edit one of the notes that you have shared. Do something to kind of let her computer be the master in this and pushing data instead of just pulling data. And sometimes that process reset some of the indexes on where syncing needs to happen and begin and all those things. And I've seen that many times with syncing, not just Apple's tech, but other tech, kind of opens those floodgates up a little bit. So that would be the the other thing that I would do is just start, maybe, create a new note, edit an existing note that is shared from her device. Make sure, that it syncs amongst all of her devices, because that will also be informative. And then obviously check to see if it syncs to yours. So that's my thought on it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's what I got. What do we got next, Adam?
We got Ken, and I was asleep at the wheel, but here we are.
Happens to the best.
Ken has a question. He says, I was married for a little over 40 years and accumulated the expected amount of family photos over that time span. My wife, who I married this past August, was married for over 43 years and also accumulated the expected amount of family photos. Together, we have thousands of photos. Now that we are both retired, we're going to embark on a scanning project, and I'm trying to figure out the logistics before we get started. We know that we can use a scanning service, but since we're retired, what can we choose to do with our time using an Epson Fast Photo FF680W photo scanner? So they're going to use a photo scanner to scan all of these photos themselves, which is a great option. Now for the questions. Should I continue to work with my current library, or should I create another library for the project and use separate albums for his and hers? In any case, I might try to create albums. In any library based on content such as family members, occasions, etc. So creating multiple albums, should I use a separate library or same library? And then question 2, should I create whatever library or libraries on an external SSD? If I do that, how do I back up the drive? I subscribe to, among others, iDrive, which will back up external drives. I also have Carbonite for this computer and Carbon Copy Cloner, CCC, as you guys have been calling it. Is this overkill? I'd rather have too much than not enough.
So I think the answer to all of these questions begins with a question, and that is several questions. How much storage do you have internal on the computer that you are going to point all this stuff at? And how big are your pictures going to be? You're in control of that. You're going to be scanning them. So scan, 10, 15 pictures at the resolution that you want. Look at an average size. They're all going to be a little different because there's going to be compression happening, but look at an average size and then multiply that out by however many thousands of pictures you have. And then multiply that by like 150%. It's not going to be that much, but you want to have some headroom for more pictures, and also headroom for, the indexes and thumbnails that Photos is naturally going to build around this stuff. So you're going to need more storage than just the fixed amount for however many pictures you're going to do. So use that to answer your questions. There's nothing wrong with putting a Photos library on an SSD, except when there is, and the biggest, most common example of when there's an issue is if it's a laptop, because dragging an SSD around with your laptop all the time is no fun.
Right.
As to how to organize them, I mean, it's really a personal decision. If it were me, and I've only been married 26 years now. I haven't been married 40 plus, but I'm still married to the same person. So I haven't been able to I haven't been in a situation where I've needed to think about, okay, how integrated do I want to take our, multiple decades of separate lives and integrate them here? Do you want all of the pictures from your current wife's former family from 40 years ago? Maybe, but also maybe not. And that's a question for you to answer. And there's no wrong answer here. It's just figure out. If I were in this position, my current gut thought is that I would make 2 separate libraries. You can always merge them later using a piece of software like Power Photos. Separating them out later is doable, but requires way more thought and effort and attention. So I would do these as two separate things. And then when you get to the end, if you say, hey, wouldn't it be cool if these were all in our shared photos library so we could do all these kind of things with them? Great. We do that. No problem. So that's how I would answer those questions.
I feel like if it was me, I'd be very, very similar. I think also a question I have is how much of this is just hey, we want to get these digitally archived for posterity versus we want to have these to actually look at. And I have a feeling there's probably a mix of them. I think to your earlier point, like you're probably, as you're doing this project, going to want to pluck out, the few hundred maybe photos that you do want in your like permanent library that you have access to all the time. And then there's probably a large collection of those that it's more archive. And so I would probably separate those things too. And the ones that were archive, I think it makes fine sense to me to have those on an external. And then probably what I would do is, in addition to the cloud backup, which he also already mentioned, I would have those libraries also like cloned to another drive, or better yet, a NAS drive like a Synology, and then you could even set up a shared library there that you could have access to when you wanted to, but you don't have to always have immediate access. So I think there's a lot of options here. And I think the other thing too is if you do decide to go the route of having multiple photo libraries, I would definitely, like Dave, you mentioned, look into using a tool like Power Photos, which will let you manage those multiple libraries. You can merge them, you can separate them, you can search them. You can search across libraries. So like if you're going to be having to deal with multiple photo libraries, this is a worthwhile tool to have, and that can help just with the overall management of it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And I would also think about your iCloud storage usage, right? When you've got these two photos libraries separate on external storage, they're not your primary library. They're not your system library. Therefore, they're not syncing all that data to iCloud. You don't have to pay iCloud to keep yet another copy of that data. You might want to, so that you can have it as a backup of sorts. But if you choose to just put them in your primary library, then you are forced essentially to pay iCloud for however much storage that is. And as someone who's now paying for 4 terabytes on our family plan of storage, I'm paying Apple. We have Apple One plus the extra 2 terabytes now, so I'm at $37 a month or something like that to Apple. It's cool. It's great.
Welcome to the walled garden.
Yeah, love it. I wish that's one of the things that I'm hoping somebody pushes enough on Apple and lets Apple Photos use some third-party storage for it. I know Apple will never choose to do that unless forced. But hey, stranger things have happened. How you doing, TikTok? So, there you go.
Not so good today.
We just saw the news as we were recording the episode that the Supreme Court held up the TikTok ban. So by the time this episode comes out, it's either banned in the United States or sold. So that'll be interesting. We'll see. Who knows what'll happen?
Right.
Yep. There's a lot of people freaking out about this. So, and I understand why. And I also understand why I really like the idea of not having my content and my income generating content tied to any one platform. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things I really love about podcasting. And just publishing on the web too. I mean, which we did for years. Like it was like, okay, my host doesn't want us. Well, I still own everything. I mean, we never had a scenario where our host didn't want us, by the way. But if that were to happen, it's like great. But yeah.
Well, it's more likely now that I'm here, Dave. So just
correct. Correct. All right, let's keep going with questions. This is good. It feels good to do.
Well, I'll take us to Jeff then. Jeff writes in, "Hey, good morning. I'm relatively certain this is a rabbit hole question. Been there, but I've decided to dip my toes into the teleconference interview into recording process. Maybe to a podcast to come from it. Last week, I thought I could use MS Teams and record it, but alas, with my level of Teams account, I cannot record. I thought I'd use Audacity, but without adequate experience and testing, I ended up only recording my own voice. Might there be a primer or a poor man's setup walkthrough you're aware of or could point me to? Running current generation Mac machines, I have USB mics and the like, but nothing else audio or podcast specific. I'd like to spend as little as possible until we decide to take it seriously. Thanks, guys. Love what you do, and we'll keep listening. Jeff. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, I have an easy place to start here for you. The app is called Piezo. It is from the folks at Rogue Amoeba. You could certainly use Audio Hijack to do exactly what you want. However, Piezo, its subtitle or second name is Charmingly Simple Audio Recording. And you launch Piezo, you set your source, and you click record, and it's done. And in this case, you would choose MS Teams, or you would choose if you're doing Teams meetings in Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome or whatever. You just choose whatever app you are using for recording, and it will by default record both ends of the conversation. And now you've got it, and you can play with it. And like you said, decide, is this something I want to do? And then choose whether Piezo is totally fine for your purposes or level up. But at least this gives you the easy start. So, and it's available for a free download. I think, there's some limitations to that, but but you certainly could test it, and it's $29 to purchase it if in fact you like the test drive and it does what you want. But test it for free, 100%.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
And I was initially surprised that you didn't give him the answer you gave me when I started. So there I was, which was, do it on Zoom and use GarageBand. But Piezo looks, at least they didn't say it's pilot proof. Just charming.
Yeah, well, they're already using Teams. And you're right. Zoom has recording built into it. So if they were using Zoom, candidly, this question probably wouldn't have come in, right? Because Zoom just does that. But Teams doesn't. That's okay. Piezo exists. Just do it. Leave everything in Teams. If you want to level up, one potential future path would be move those calls to Zoom, take advantage of Zoom's individual recordings, so that you can then use Audacity to really mix things and all that. But Piezo will give you a recording that you could release. Like Piezo was something we never had, I don't believe. We never had to release an episode of MGG that was recorded with Piezo. But after having, I think it was 3 false starts where I did not hit the record button at the beginning, and it was bad, guys. Like we would get 15, 20 minutes in, like we were rolling and rocking. And I remember every time I noticed we weren't recording while John was speaking, because when I'm speaking, I'm focused on what I'm doing. But, John, when you guys are speaking, I'm just kind of casually monitoring all the things to make sure things are rolling, because we do a lot live here. And it would be, 15, 20 minutes in, I'd just be, John, stop talking. He'd be like, wait, no, I'm on a roll. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter. And so after the third time of that, I was like, all right, we need to set you up on your end with a recording too, so that we have a backup if we ever run into this scenario again. And of course we never did. But I'm sure John has, hundreds of Piezo recordings in his archives over there as backups. So it's really easy. You just hit the button. That's it. So that's what I would do. Yep. Yepper. Todd wrote in for Cool Stuff Found. He says, once in a while, I run the app, the iNet Network Scanner on my Mac, and it's to ensure that I know what is attached to my home LAN. The app can export a list of devices listed by name, IP address, MAC address, and not surprising, some names can be very generic. One was Universal Global Scientific Industrial Company Limited, which was attached to my Wi-Fi. And it was driving me crazy, and this was the device I couldn't identify. Eventually, I had the Eero block it from the internet. When I went to bed, our 8 sleep box from their bed was flashing a white-red light. Apparently, their Wi-Fi chip is made by Universal Global Scientific Industrial Company Limited. Mystery solved. Just a reminder to know what is on your network so you don't get caught. Yeah, I forgot about iNet Network Scanner. Man, it's been a long time. So, yep.
Nice.
Yep.
Cool.
I will throw in my own cool stuff found here because we had an issue one night in the Wi-Fi, as we might have mentioned in Las Vegas during the last episode, just sucked. It was slow, really, really slow. And anyone who attempted to watch the live stream that Pete and I did from Vegas, kudos to you, because I watched it afterward. I watched the recording of it. It was a disaster. Thankfully, we recorded local video too on that one. And so the video that was pushed out when the episode came out was actually like, watchable. Yeah, it was totally fine. But the Wi-Fi was bad. However, we always had strong signal strength. It was just slow. One night, we you should watch the video, folks. We did a little video of our Mac Geek Gab command center there, but the command center
pretty bad that we had better Wi-Fi on the airplane going to Vegas than we had in the hotel.
Yes, exactly. And that's not overstating anything at all. I mean, it was five times better on the airplane. Yeah.
And then coming home, of course, Dave's
nothing.
We had crappy Wi-Fi, and Dave said, that makes me miss the Treasure Island Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's fair.
So it just kept getting worse and worse throughout the week.
It did. One night, though, you had gone to retire to behind your closed door of our command center, and I was getting ready to do the same, going through a little bit of email, and suddenly I realized, wait, I'm not connected anymore. And then my Mac connected, and I saw it had like one tiny little bar. I'm like, crap. And I looked, I opened up Wi-Fi Explorer, and literally the strongest signal for me was from the Venetian across the street. And I did see the Treasure Island Wi-Fi, but it was all like, 8%, 11%. I'm like, I hadn't launched Wi-Fi Explorer before, but I knew it was better than that. Like, I knew something was wrong. And so again, and this is, back to a previously mentioned quick tip, Treasure Island, like most hotels now, has a mechanism where you can text the staff and get things done and questions answered. It's way more efficient than anything else. So I texted them. I'm like, hey, looks like on the 25th floor, at least on our end of it, we are like the Wi-Fi's bad. And their first response was, yes, well, it's CES. And so there's a lot of people here and this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, yeah, I get that. However, first of all, you knew that and you should have worked for it. However, that's not the problem. I'm like, you have access points that are no longer online. And they were like, oh, thank you for telling us that. We will pass this data along to the engineers. So I was sort of finished with my day. That maybe cut 10 minutes off of some of the pre-bed work that I wanted to do, but it was fine, whatever. I was like, all right, well, I get 10 minutes more sleep thanks to the Wi-Fi. So I went to sleep and woke up, 6 hours later, probably less than that, and checked and everything was online. And then I launched Wi-Fi Explorer and saw, probably 30 access points or 30 radios show up that were definitely not there the night before. So it's like, all right, like Wi-Fi Explorer and the texting to the hotel, like maybe they would have seen that these were offline. Maybe not. I don't know, but it got fixed overnight and that was pretty good by me. So make sure to text the hotel. Yep.
I don't know about, at CES, but I will tell you when we were traveling recently, we were staying at a hotel. The hotel Wi-Fi was god awful. And I was very happy for 5G ultra wideband because we had that and that was like excellent.
Oh, yeah.
We actually tried that at one point on the, we didn't have ultra wideband working, but we tried tethering. It was so bad in the hotel and it was just, it was. Yeah,
bad. Well, that's a density, probably also a density thing.
It was a signal thing. Like, you're in a cement tent in the hotel. Yeah. So, and the windows, like, it was not the greatest.
Like the funny thing, in a Faraday cage, indeed.
Yeah, exactly.
The funniest thing about the hotel we were in is you had 5G ultra wideband when we were on the third floor, but when we'd go down for breakfast, it was 3G basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. That checks out. That makes sense. Yeah, because you're deeper in the cage. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I have learned the hard way. I mentioned this about a year and a half ago on the show after learning it the hard way, that before I unpack anything if I'm in a hotel room. I mean, I don't always unpack if I'm only there for a day or two. I just live out of my suitcase. But before I start getting settled in any way, I connect to the Wi-Fi on my phone and I do a speed test. And I make sure I can get what I need from that room before I start getting settled. And also, every now and then, the Ethernet ports, if they're there, they might actually work. It's surprising, but that saved my bacon in New York a year and a half ago, plugging into the Wi-Fi, plugging into the Ethernet.
Yeah, I added an Ethernet cable to my kit.
Same.
Travel kit.
Years ago when I ran into that problem. I was at some hotel and it was like, oh, they have an Ethernet port. I don't have a cable. And I have the ability to get a cable. And you call down and I'm like, do you have a cable? No.
Well, the only thing, I don't think you were doing the show with us when this happened, but we got to the hotel. Lisa and I were traveling. We were in New York for some fish shows, but it was very much we're going to be in a hotel. Both of us need to get work done during some of the days. We're going to go to the shows at night. It's all great, but it was not pure vacation, right? And so we get there, we get completely unpacked, both of us. We tested the Wi-Fi and I was like, this ain't going to work. And I brought my laptop around on the floor. I'm like, okay, I see where the access point is. It's on the other side of the elevator shaft from where this room is. Of course, this doesn't work. They had me test. They were very nice at the hotel. I went and tested other rooms, but like we had a pretty good room and the other rooms were bad. Like the couch was, falling apart, and it was like, okay, what are we going to do here? I'm like, all right, well, we've picked the room that we're going to go to. Fine. Lisa packs up everything. I pack up everything. I do the dummy check in the room of all the drawers, and the drawer by the bed had a Bible and an Ethernet cable in it. And I was like, oh, wait. And I plugged it in and it worked. And I said, Lisa, we're staying in this room. The response that I got from her was nonverbal. There was no physical contact, which in this case was a good thing. But it was not the best moment of our marriage thus far. Let me put it that way. However, we did stay in that room. So, yeah.
And you're still together. So how bad could it have been?
We made it. That which does not kill us. Yeah, exactly.
One more hurdle.
It was. Yeah, it was great. She's like, why didn't you think to check that before? I'm like, because it's been years since that's been a thing in hotel. Like a lot of these hotel rooms, those Ethernet jacks died years ago. Yeah. It's like, I just don't think about it. So now I do. You bet your sweet bottom dollar I do. All right. Make sure to join the giveaway. MacGeekGab.com/giveaway. Get yourself a hat from our thing. I'm pretty sure it's a hat that we're giving away. Why do I say that we're giving away a T-shirt in the show notes? I thought Sadie said we were giving away a hat.
Too, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to check this.
I think we are.
We're giving away hats. We're giving away hats. I just have it wrong I blame my CES fueled stupor because I'm sure that's.
Now you got to give away both, Dave.
Oh, sure. We'll give away a T-shirt sometime soon. Thanks to CashFly for providing all the bandwidth to get the show from us to you. Make sure to check out all the other shows that we do. Pete's So There I Was, Adam's debut film podcast, My Gig Gab and Business Brain. And make sure to share this episode with someone. Please, please, please. Oh, and go check out our YouTube channel, MacGeekGab.com/YouTube. All the videos that we did from CES. Pete and I saw so many cool products. We talked about some of them last week, but have yet to even scratch the surface. But you can see them all there, and you actually get to see them, which is cool. So check it out. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. Adam.
Yes, sir.
It's good to have you back. It sucked not doing the show with you from CES, but I'm glad we didn't try because it would have failed. Like there would have been no way for us to communicate with each other, even just audibly, and do a podcast. But I missed hearing your voice, so would you say at least 3 more words?
Yeah. I would advise everybody, don't get caught.
Made on a Mac.
Later.
See ya.
And we're out.